I'm going to let this video play in the background. The audio isn't necessarily going to be attached to it or walk along with it, but I want to go through what I did outside of this video for my rehab process. So as you saw there, I injured my wrist March 13th with that fall. So the night after that injury happened, I was laying in bed trying to sleep and couldn't really find a position in which I could put my wrist in. It wouldn't just absolutely throb or hurt. Even if I had it neutral, or it had to be almost like perfectly neutral, and it was very difficult to do that. And so I just got terrible sleep that first night afterwards. So I want to start with that, where it's like, okay, some people might say like, okay, you got to take some type of anti-inflammatory, take something or wrap it or whatever so that you can sleep better because sleep is necessary for recovery. It's like, yeah, sure, but also I'm probably supposed to feel that pain because that injury that I just had. And I don't mean like feel the pain in a feel the pain, type of way, but it's more like I want to be able to hear the feedback that my body is giving me, right? And so I'm not going to try to numb that. I'm just going to sit there with it because that is giving me awareness around what is happening with it. And I wasn't super worried that I didn't get great sleep because I was like, yeah, my shit hurts. I'm not going to get great sleep. That's fine. It's part of this process. It's not like not getting great sleep is going to kill me. So that happened the first night, and really for the first couple days, probably for the first 2 days after, I didn't use it or move it that much. That's in line with what I'll generally have people do with after surgery. It's different, or after major injuries. It's different for each person, but usually for the first 2 days after or so, we're not going to move the specific area that much. I did continue to train the rest of my body, and I thought that was one of the most important parts of it, is that I continued to train the rest of my body hard, and just whatever was affecting the wrist where it didn't feel good, I wouldn't do those specific things. Right, and I would just pretty much not do anything with it for those first 2 days. But training the rest of my body hard allowed, I'm going to restart this video here and just let it continue to play. Training the rest of my body hard allowed, me as a whole to still output high levels of, intent into my physical body, if that makes sense. So, everything with my legs, everything with my upper half, with the right side, all that different type of stuff. I wanted to continue to train that hard so that the wrist didn't become the only thing that was going on. And I don't know exactly how to explain it, but that seemed to help the rehab process a lot. So that was the first 2 days or so after. And then by the third or fourth day, I started to move it more often. And honestly, what I did a lot at the start is I'd do my normal training sessions for my whole body, for the rest of my body. I do those normally. But specifically with the wrist, what I would do is just simply I drive probably about an hour a day, just different places that I go. I drive probably about an hour a day. So as the whole time that I was driving, I would do the finger joint moves that I have, and then also the wrist joint moves that I would have. And I would do those just in the car as I was driving. At the start, is left side of the body only. Eventually, I worked into both sides when the reps weren't quite as intense. But at the start, it was literally I'd do sets of 300 for finger moves, and there's 2 finger moves, so sets of 300 of that, and there's 3 wrist moves, sets of 300 for that. And I would do those once or twice a day. So that would be 300, 600, 1200, 15. It would be 3,000 moves at the fingers and wrist per day on that left side, where I'm just simply moving my fingers and my wrist in every direction that it can move. And every single rep just asking okay, how much more range can I get? How is it feeling? Basically just taking and sending feedback from that area that was injured up to my brain, so my brain knows, okay, this is what's going on, as well as stimulating flow in those areas to continue to cycle nutrients and help that regeneration or rehabilitation process. So that's a lot of what I did early on, was go through those finger and joint moves as I was driving, just really as separate from my own training sessions. By day, let me see here. I want to say it's by day 5 or 6. Yeah, this is 4 days, 11. Yeah, probably by day by day 5 or 6. I think on the 5th or 6th day or something like that, I did a 1-arm hang with my left arm just for maybe 3 to 5 seconds, and then I also did a push-up at the top with my wrist flat. And what I got out of that is my wrists started feeling a little better, but once I did those, it felt like it kind of stimulated a bone in a way that I didn't want to do it. Whereas the bone on the lateral part of my wrist felt like it was just the bone itself didn't swell it, but it kind of got solid around that area, and I would get it didn't feel good. It felt like there was a crack. It felt like there was a crack there. So I was like, all right, I can physically do this, but I'm going to back off and not try to push the output so early. And I think that's an important part to understand during rehab is like, because going through this video can look like, oh, we're trying to get back as fast as possible. And it's not necessarily, yes, we're trying to get back fast, but it's not like we're trying to push it faster than it's ready to go. I'm not trying to push my body faster than it's ready to go to create more injury. When that thing happened and I was like, okay, I'm going to back off on this and I'm not going to push it as much. And I'm going to continue to do the joint moves that I'm doing, but I'm not going to do the output type work with it. And that carried on for a couple more days. When did I do that one arm hang here? This is 4 days, 11 days. Yes, like on this one, I mean, it felt all right. It wasn't producing that response after, which is why I continued to do those 16 days, 18 days. Yeah, so by like 19 days post, that one arm hang felt really good. There's no kind of side effect or repercussions from that specific one arm hang that I just showed. That was 19 days after. So yeah, like it was the joint moves that I really hammered home after the output didn't feel good. And then once it got to the point where like, okay, it doesn't feel like the joint moves themselves are stimulating as much, then I need to start to add in a little bit of force. So what I first did is, if you take like a joint move, so the joint moves are, do I have them in this video later? The joint moves that I used are these, right? So you're going wrist up and down, you're going side to side, and then you're also going pronate, supinate. Those are the joint moves that I used, right? And so what I started to do after the joint moves themselves is like, okay, full range is feeling pretty good. Or full range wasn't exactly feeling perfect, but it didn't feel like I was stimulating. It didn't feel like I was stimulating as much as I need to stimulate. So what I started to do is go through those moves, and I would go into the end range that I had. So let's say we have the extension move here. I'd pull, and this would be as I was driving. Like I'd pull my wrist up as high as I could, and then I'd do like pulse overcoming isos against the steering wheel. So wrist pulled up, press against the steering wheel for a second, relax. Press against the steering wheel for a second, relax. And through doing that, I could regulate the amount of force that I would output into it. So it was like a way to bridge the joint moves themselves with actual force output, but it wasn't going all the way to like the one arm hangs or the push-ups at the top or whatever. It was like I was able to kind of regress to regulate the force that I could put specifically into that wrist. That was more than the joint moves, but less than those. So it was a good bridge or a good way to bridge the gap between those two. It's actually something that I haven't really used before that I've since like started to implement into training and rehab with others. So something cool that I got out of it was just started to do those. Those started feeling better, and then eventually led into starting to do the push-ups, starting to do the hangs, and that type of work. As it started to actually feel a little bit better. And then that takes us to around like this point here. So this is, so 19 days we talked about there. And then the reason that I wasn't going all the way up on these curls is because that supinated position is where the wrist still felt the most. Like I still felt a good amount of pain here, so I couldn't actually pull up all the way. So again, all I did is like, I'm just going to go up as high as I can, and I'm going to progress that daily. So those probably took no more than like 2 or 3 days to get to the point where I could do a full rep. Once I started doing them, like the body adapted to those pretty quick. But this was kind of further into the progression of like, okay, I've done the joint moves, I've done the overcoming iso like pulse type work. Those are feeling pretty good. Now I'm going to start to actually add some more weight and get into some more of the normal exercises that I would do that are a little bit more global. So those. Here, this is 25 days post 225. This didn't feel great, but it also didn't feel like it was going to hurt anything. So I was like, I need to progress in order to continue progressing, like, which I realized that sentence was obvious. But on the return back up, it didn't feel like, it might look like I had the left arm fully locked out there, but it didn't feel like I could actually fully lock that out because the range wasn't quite there with the wrist, and I didn't have quite as good a connection down the tricep and into the back on that left side yet because I wasn't able to use that left hand fully. But it was still like I need to start implementing these back in to be able to bring that back versus staying regress, because it didn't feel like the joint moves at that point, like they were good, I was continuing to do them, but it didn't feel like they were providing enough stimulus to be able to actually continue to progress the rehab. So started working in stuff like this. I think this is the first time that I did a like wrist flat, full deep push up with a press back up to the top. Again, on the press back up to the top, it didn't feel like I could fully lock out. Like that left side wrist just didn't feel like it it was ready to do that. So I could get into the position. It wasn't perfect yet. This was pretty cool. 35 days after it being able to do a rebound with 315. And it was like, that felt like it allowed me to like it might have felt sore the day after this, but it was like I needed to do this to again continue progressing it. And this is all based on where the person is at. Like I probably wouldn't have another individual try this. I might. It just depends on their training experience and how well in touch they are with their body. And so that was pretty cool. This is like same day. You can see I was able to start taking and accepting some force in that position. Again, these didn't feel that great. Like it definitely wasn't pain-free, but it was like I need to put this in there to be able to progress it. 37 days after, and then yeah, this is 54 days after. So really what happened in between like these and then this point, right, is because that's a decent amount of time, 37 days to, from 37 to 54 days is what, 17 days? So really what happened in that time period was like I continued to do the joint moves, continued to use it, continued to train it, and it was still there a little bit, but it wasn't something that was super inhibitive. And so it was almost like I forgot about it. And that was the point that I started to understand, or like before I started to do these, it was like I started to forget about it. So these were like, okay, let's test it from a higher height, because the last time that I'd done 35 days was like here. And I'd done a couple others of those, but I was like, I pretty much forgot about it. Let's start to test it and see what it's like here. And then that's when I really started to kind of push to the last envelope there. But it was like at the start, super regress, go through, get to the point where it's like, okay, it's just there a little bit at different times. And then it's almost like I stopped focusing on it to just let it fully come back. Like just continue to hammer joint moves and whatnot. Like I continued to do them, but it wasn't as many. It's probably like 100 per day on both hands. And that's just because I also just like to do joint moves every day because they tend to help the body continue to feel good. So there's almost more of that than trying to specifically address the wrist. But once it got to the point that I forgot about it, it's like, okay, let's kind of let it chill, train as normal, and then really test it out after a couple of days where I was like, yeah, I haven't really thought about it for a while. So let's see how it's doing. And then that's, I mean, it's I would say like 98% back. Still maybe like a little bit of feeling on these here, but again, and even these, there's like full confidence on those. So, but that was the process that I went through. I wanted to walk through kind of some more detail on that because a short video like that can only show so much. And I guess like biggest takeaways are, when something like this happens, it's not like I was completely confident right at the start that I was going to be able to bring this back just through my own processes. Like I was kind of considering, should I go get this checked out? I didn't really think about it or consider it that long. But I guess it's understanding the power and the ability that your body has to recover, to rehab, to bring it back if you understand and know how to use it and how to stimulate it, right? Because if I wasn't very well trained before this happened, I don't think the rehab or the bounce back would have been as efficient. And so that's part of it as well. Is like a big part of recovering from an injury that you have is how trained or how prepared you are before an actual injury happens, because that is going to allow your system to, like, how to stimulate it more or better than someone else that isn't as trained. And so you can, as you go through the recovery process, you're going to be able to better know how to listen to your body, so that you can progress as efficiently as possible versus not doing enough or doing too much and then setting it back, right? So huge piece of it is how trained you are to start with, how in tune you are with your own body. And that doesn't mean like you're soft with your body, but it's more like you actually know how to truly listen to it and stimulate when you need to, but actually back off when you need to as well. So that's a big point with this. But it's an example or reminder to be like, you don't have to go get something checked out immediately when something happens. Like the day after, there's multiple people being like, you should go get it checked out. You should go get it checked out. You should go get it checked out. And I was like, bro, chill. It's been like, it's not even been 24 hours. Yeah, obviously it's going to feel like shit. Obviously it's going to hurt. Obviously it's going to There's going to be pulsing pain there. Like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just what my body is doing. It doesn't mean that I have to go get it immediately checked out, because my thought process was basically like, let me at least give it 3 or 4 days. Let's see how it adapts, see how it comes back. And by the third or fourth day, I was like, this feels significantly better, because it was like every day I could feel something had significantly changed. And so I just think giving a little bit of time in between the injury and then like freaking out and being like, oh, something is terribly wrong, is going to help you maintain or get a lot more confidence in your own body's ability to regenerate. So hope that helps shed some light on the process that I went through, and that's all I got.